Taurus. Lately, everything has still been moving at a familiar pace. Morning comes. You open your eyes, and the light slips through the window the same way it always does. The roads are busy during rush hour. There are turns so familiar, your feet seem to know them on their own. Work, daily routines, habits repeated long enough that they no longer require much thought. For Taurus, that familiarity often brings a sense of ease. It feels like an old chair in the corner of a room. Not especially striking, but the moment you sit down, your body softens. There are seasons in life when that feeling matters more than anything else. No need for constant change. No need to keep up with someone else's rhythm. And yet, within days that seem so ordinary, something unusual sometimes appears. It is hard to say where it comes from. It is not loud. It does not knock. It is simply a moment when your inner pace slows by one quiet beat. Sometimes it arrives in the evening. The room is still. Only the warm glow of a lamp rests on the floor. The silence is deep enough that you can hear your own breathing. Taurus sits there, doing nothing in particular, and a gentle thought passes through the mind. It feels like something may be shifting. Not exactly joy, not quite worry. It is like standing on a familiar road and suddenly noticing the wind feels different today. Not stronger, not colder, just different. A difference so small, yet enough to make you pause a moment longer than usual. At times, that feeling shows up in the middle of the day. Standing at a red light, watching traffic move past. Everything looks the same, yet inside, a thin space opens. Not emptiness. More like a quiet opening, just wide enough for something new to enter. Taurus is not easily swept away by sudden emotions. There is a natural trust in things that are slow, clear, and tangible. Because of that, when a vague feeling appears, it becomes more noticeable, like a small stone dropping into a calm lake. No big waves, just enough to remind you the surface is no longer completely still. That feeling does not demand immediate understanding. It does not ask for action. It simply stays, light, steady, patient. Life may continue as usual, work gets done, familiar habits remain in place. Yet somewhere inside, a small part begins paying closer attention to passing thoughts, to questions that do not need answers yet. It is like sitting in a familiar room and suddenly realizing the light outside the window has changed color. Not night, not quite sunset. Just a quiet moment of transition, soft and slow. And perhaps for Taurus, what matters most is not naming that feeling. What matters is allowing yourself, maybe for the first time, to stay within that quiet space, not rushing past it, not trying to explain it away, simply noticing this. Even in the most ordinary days, unfamiliar feelings sometimes pass through, and recognizing that moment on its own can already feel deeply worth holding onto. After that moment, silence no longer feels the same. It is no longer just the space between two sounds, or a brief pause after long days. Silence begins to carry a very light weight, just enough to be felt, like standing in a familiar room. Everything is still there, yet the light falls at a different angle, making the space feel both unfamiliar and close at the same time. Taurus often finds safety in a steady rhythm. Familiar patterns help the heart settle, but in very quiet moments, when the noise outside fades, something inside begins to surface. Things that were never heard this clearly before. Not a loud voice, just a slower heartbeat than usual, a passing thought that stays longer than expected. Silence now feels like a late evening when the city has dimmed its lights and only a few reflections remain on the pavement. No one is rushing you. Nothing needs to be done right away. And yet, in that stillness, the sense of self becomes more defined. What was once hidden by busyness, by responsibility, by routine, begins to appear slowly and gently. At times, silence carries memories with it, not loud or painful ones, but just small fragments, an old morning, a moment spent waiting for someone, a decision that was once postponed, These pieces do not demand attention. They do not force themselves forward. They simply arrive and stand nearby, as if asking to be acknowledged, as if to say they are still here. For Taurus, staying within silence is not as easy as it looks. This silence is not about escaping the world. It is about meeting yourself. No explanations are needed, no conclusions are required. It is simply allowing yourself to sit down in a quiet room and listen to what is unfolding inside, like a small flame burning steadily in the night. It does not flare up. It does not go out. Its light is just enough to reveal a corner that was rarely noticed before. And in that gentle glow, things are not revealed so they can be changed right away, but so they can be seen with more honesty. In this way, silence begins to speak more than words. It offers no directions. It asks for no action. It simply opens a space where Taurus can slow their breath and feel each thought, each emotion as it moves through. A space that does not need to be filled in a hurry because its presence alone already carries meaning. And within that quiet, something very subtle begins to form. Not an answer, but the feeling of being in the right place, at the right pace, in the right moment of your own life. From there, everything around you seems unchanged, yet the way you see it shifts, almost imperceptibly. Details that once rushed past now slow down, just enough for their shape to be noticed. Not because they suddenly matter more, but because you are ready to pay a little more attention. A casual sentence drifts into your ears while you stand in line waiting for coffee. Just a few ordinary words, no emphasis, no clear message. And still, they linger longer than expected, as if something in their tone brushes softly against a private corner inside you. There is no need to understand why. You simply notice your inner balance tilt just slightly in their direction. Then there is a brief glance on the street, no familiarity, no exchange, just two people passing through a crowd. That glance says nothing, yet it stirs a strangely familiar feeling, like coming across an emotion you once set aside and forgot about. The moment is quick, but its echo stays. Even while waiting at a red light, when the city pauses for a few short seconds, your thoughts quietly take a different turn. Not toward big questions, but toward small, everyday reflections. A choice you once passed up, something you wanted to try but never rushed into. They carry no pressure. They arrive like small notes placed gently on a table, waiting to be noticed. Taurus usually does not give much weight to vague signals. Certainty has always been a familiar anchor. Yet, in this state, the smallest things carry a subtle gravity. Not to push you forward, but to remind you that invisible threads are quietly connecting everything, even if the full picture has not appeared yet. It feels like assembling a large image from scattered pieces. Each piece alone says very little, but when a few are set side by side, a faint outline begins to emerge. Not enough to draw conclusions, just enough to sense that the picture exists. And in that moment of noticing these small details, something inside softens. There is no need to chase them, no need to search for meaning right away. They can simply remain where they are, like gentle marks along a familiar road, reminding you that sometimes what seems insignificant is what guides you more slowly, yet more deeply, into the story unfolding within your own life. And then, within that stream of thoughts, another feeling begins to surface. Not suddenly, not sharply. It feels like standing at a familiar intersection, a place your feet have crossed countless times before. The only difference is this moment of noticing that you have been standing there for quite a while. Not because you were lost, but because you grew comfortable not having to turn. Slowness has always been something Taurus values. It gives life room to settle, time to test what feels true, and it's space to avoid being pulled into rushed decisions. Yet, in that very quiet moment, something delicate comes into focus. The line between choosing stability and quietly avoiding disruption can be closer than it seems. This feeling carries no blame. It does not ask why you stayed so long. It appears like a late-night streetlight, casting its glow on an empty road, bright enough to show where you are standing. No pressure to move, just a gentle invitation toward honesty with yourself. Perhaps Taurus has grown used to keeping everything safe. A quiet room, objects placed where they belong, nothing unexpected. And sometimes that order creates still air, not suffocating, just missing a breeze to remind you that time is still passing. In this moment, a very small question arises. It does not need an answer right away. It does not demand change. It does not ask you to leave what feels familiar. It simply stays, like a small flame burning steadily inside, warm enough to illuminate a thought once overlooked. Is the peace you are holding a true choice, or a temporary shelter from things you are not ready to face yet? That question does not make the moment heavier. Strangely, it brings a sense of relief, as if allowing it to exist without solving it is enough to give the inner space a little more room to breathe. Taurus remains there on the familiar road, but now with a different kind of awareness, not rushing forward, not entirely standing still. And in that quiet, something deeply human happens. There is acknowledgement that sometimes staying still for too long is not wrong. It only gains meaning when it is seen clearly through a gentle, all non-judging gaze. Like standing beneath a late-night light, realizing you have been here long enough and that you still carry the freedom to move on, at your own pace, in your own rhythm. In that very state, when there is no longer pressure to move forward or to stay still, something subtle begins to appear. It does not take the shape of an event. There is no signal sound. Everything outside continues as usual, quiet enough to make it seem as though nothing new is happening at all. There is no urgent knock in the middle of the night. No one standing in front of you delivering a decisive statement. No sudden flash that makes the heart beat faster than normal. That important realization arrives in a way that feels deeply Taurus. Quiet, like early morning when the city is still half asleep. It does not come to draw attention. It simply shows up, gently, like a small understanding forming between thoughts that once felt scattered. It might happen during an afternoon spent alone, watching sunlight slowly slide down a wall, or while tidying a familiar corner of the house, your hand brushing against an old object and noticing that your feelings have shifted. It is hard to say when that change began, only that the moment carries a calm sense of clarity. That understanding does not arrive with long explanations. It does not tell you what to do. It does not point toward a specific path. It is like standing in a silent room and suddenly realizing the light has changed direction. Everything remains in its place, yet the way you see it is no longer the same. For Taurus, this carries a particular weight. When something is quiet enough to be accepted, it has often passed through many layers of thought, many delays, many evenings of asking questions without needing answers. And when it finally surfaces, it does not demand immediate action. It simply stays. There is a very gentle moment when the heart understands that some things cannot return to how they were before. Not because of regret, not because of loss, but because perspective has shifted. And once something is truly seen, it becomes difficult to pretend it was never noticed. That important realization does not disrupt life. It does not break the stability Taurus values. Yet it creates a small movement within, like underground water flowing beneath the surface, invisible, but slowly reshaping what once seemed firmly set. And in that quiet, a feeling emerges that feels unmistakably real. The inner world does not fully return to its former state, even as everything outside remains calm. It is as if you have touched a deeper layer of yourself, a place where understanding needs no words, and where change does not require a loud moment to be named. From that point on, familiar emotions continue to remain. They do not disappear. They are not pushed aside. They are the same feelings that once brought a sense of safety. The same old habits, worn but comforting, like a jacket that has lasted through many seasons. When you put it on, the body remembers how it used to fit, and right beside them, another emotion is standing there, not interrupting, not competing for space, simply existing quietly, like a patient guest waiting in a silent room. No calling out, no signs of impatience, just being present. That coexistence creates a space that feels unfamiliar, not a conflict, not a decision that must be made. It is like late afternoon when daylight and shadow begin to touch, neither one overpowering the other, both settling into the same slow moment. There are times when the old emotions step forward first, guiding life as it usually does. Taurus still recognizes that rhythm, still feels the steadiness it provides, and then, in a very small moment, the new feeling brushes against you, like a soft breeze passing the back of your neck, just enough to know it is still there. What feels different is that this new emotion does not ask to be named. It does not need loud acknowledgement. It asks for no promises. It simply stands nearby, patient, as if it understands that Taurus needs time to grow familiar with its presence in the most natural way. In moments like this, the inner space begins to widen. There is no longer a sense of choosing between old and new. It becomes possible to let both exist together, to breathe within the same shared space. Like two small lamps in a dark room, each casting its own light, neither dimming the other. And that quiet acceptance brings a different kind of peace. Not the peace of everything standing still, but the peace of not having to push one thing away in order to keep another. Taurus begins to sense that sometimes, allowing emotions to stand side by side like this is already a deep movement forward, not loud, not on display, but real enough to be felt with a gentle kindness toward yourself. From that gentleness, thus something else begins to unfold quietly. No one steps in to say what should be done. No clear signal appears to point the way. Everything on the outside continues as usual. Yet inside, the vague feeling from before is slowly replaced by a very personal kind of clarity. Not certainty in the usual sense. More like knowing where you are standing, right here, in this moment. That clarity does not arrive as a complete answer. It feels like an early morning walk when a thin layer of mist still rests on the road. But the outlines around you are starting to take shape. You do not need to see the entire path ahead. Seeing the step beneath your feet is already enough to ease the uncertainty. Taurus is used to relying on what can be touched, things that are concrete, stable, reassuring. But this clarity does not take the form of a plan or a decision. It is a quiet understanding, an understanding of the rhythm you are living in now, of what you are holding on to, and of what has been slowly changing without you even noticing when it began. There are evenings when this feeling becomes clearer. The room is dim, lit by a small lamp. What appears is not a stream of thoughts, but a deep settling, like sitting still and realizing you no longer need to chase answers. The questions do not disappear. They simply lose their pressure. They rest where they are, softer than before. This clarity does not push you to act. It does not ask you to leave behind what feels familiar. It does one simple, meaningful thing. It places Taurus exactly where they belong in the story of their life right now. Not too early, not too late, just in the right place, like standing beneath a late-night streetlight on a quiet road, looking around and noticing you no longer feel lost. Not because you know exactly where you are going, but because you understand which part of the road you are on. Some stretches ask you to move faster, some invite you to pause, and some simply ask you to stand still and observe. In this state, the heart feels steadier in a very gentle way. There is no need to prove anything, no need to name the change, only the feeling that something inside is beginning to align with what is outside, even if that alignment is still delicate, like a small flame burning evenly, not bright, not dramatic, just warm enough to know you are fully present. Clarity forms from within in this way, quiet, unannounced, simply an unspoken understanding that, right now, Taurus is living a little closer to their own rhythm, and sometimes that alone can bring a sense of peace that feels real, enough to keep moving forward without rushing, without forcing, with a gentle trust in the experience that is still unfolding. And then, there is no single moment that truly marks an ending. Everything simply slows a little more, like a story reaching its final pages while the narrator chooses not to rush the closing words. There is no need for a major decision, no clear turning point to prove that something has changed. Only a quieter sense of calm when looking back at yourself, with less doubt, and a deeper willingness to listen. Taurus remains there within familiar rhythms, within mornings where the light looks much like it did yesterday. Yet inside, a space has gently expanded, not to hold something new, but to give everything room to breathe. Like a quiet room with a window slightly opened, the air does not shift all at once. It simply becomes easier to inhale. At times, the deepest change is not about doing more, but about seeing differently what is already here. Looking back at the emotions that surfaced, the silent moments, the small details that once lingered in the mind, and realizing that each of them has played a part in bringing you here to this exact moment. Perhaps not everything needs to be fully understood. Perhaps not every experience needs a name. Some things only need to be noticed and then left where they are, like a late-night light that remains on, not brighter because someone is watching, not dimmer because someone has walked away. In this moment, a gentle question may arise, one that does not demand an immediate answer. Have you given yourself enough time to feel before rushing to change something? That question is not meant to lead to action. It simply opens a deeper quiet, a space where each person can hear their own rhythm more clearly. And as the story softly pauses here, it is not to close itself, but to let the feeling linger a little longer. Like after a streetlight casts its glow on an empty road, leaving behind a faint halo of light, enough to keep walking or to remain still. Either way is fine, as long as you feel fully present in this moment.